It's Thursday, it's Christmas Eve. There's magic in the air, and that magic, dear listener, is the magic of cinema. Welcome, for the first time, to the best movie podcast ever, the only movie podcast that offers objective, hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me as always, he will be your wingman anytime, it's Anthony James.
Afternoon, good evening, good night.
Lovely. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm doing well. What about yourself?
I'm not bad, thank you. I'm
excited. I'm excited about this new venture.
I know. Thank you for joining us, to anyone who's listening to this maiden voyage of the good ship BMPE.
Yeah, the BMPE. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, we'll try. On this ship, we won't have our stars shouting at people who are working the lights because of breaking social distancing measures. We simply won't have that here.
Exactly. No, I'm a little bright, but we'll deal with it. My usual lighting guy wasn't in today, so.
I felt like I had to mention the Tom Cruise thing because I don't know if you actually watched that video, but we said
I generally don't like to watch videos of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's a good stance. But I felt like we mentioned him in the intro.
And if they've been edited together by a professional editor with some good lighting and music, I'll watch them then. Because they're called films.
Yeah, they're called movies, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, subscribe to us on YouTube, please. The link is in the description down there. And on podcasting apps, we're on all the good ones. The bad ones can suck it. And if you'd be so inclined, a rating and a like would help us out immensely. But without further ado, let's talk about some movies.
Let's do it. Right. Okay. I'm ready.
Nice. Right. Well, hello. Thank you for joining us again. Hello to you, Anthony. Hello to our loyal listeners, new and existing alike.
Yep.
To give you a brief rundown of what this podcast is going to be, some weeks it's going to be, a themed episode like this one. And some weeks it will be just us talking about movies that we've watched since the last time we did one of those. Which I guess means in the first time we do one of those, we're going to talk about every movie we've ever seen up until that point.
Yeah, we'd have to.
It might be a long one. So
I've set aside a week in January for it.
Okay, excellent, fine. So, look forward to getting that. It'll probably be about 40 hours long, I think, so we might need to...
At least.
Yeah, we'll have to schedule the uploads. But obviously, if we're doing a movie about movies, we're doing a movie about movies, we're doing a podcast about movies.
We can do a movie. I'm happy to do a movie. I've got the camera, got the lights. Yeah. I'll get my lighting guy in, we'll light it properly. It'll be real nice.
Someone buy the rights to this. This is gold. If we're doing a podcast about movies, obviously we need to start by establishing the best movies ever made. We simply can't operate with any credibility without doing that. So
objectively, by the way, this isn't our opinion. This isn't our opinion.
Yeah, it needs to be objective. It needs to be hyperbole-free, emotion-free.
Yeah.
We've looked at the numbers. We've sat down and crunched them, and this is what we've come out with. And finally, we can put the best movies ever made debate to bed with this.
We're going to disappoint some people. Some people are going to think, why isn't I don't know, the Care Bear movie in here? But we couldn't include all the best movies ever. We had to include are the objective 10. We had to be heartless about it, really.
Yeah, we've got to be. The numbers don't lie. So unfortunately, this is the top 10.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, then. I say we just get cracking on it. So Anthony, do you want to kick us off with what is in your? Well, in fact, actually, I'll say before I say this, we're each going to propose a movie. We each pick 5. We're going to propose a movie that we think should be in the 10-9 spot, and then we're going to have a little discussion about which one we think should go in it, and then we'll continue that.
Yeah. So basically, as the top 10 will be made up of Konrad and my objective 5 best films.
Yeah.
And so it'll be dotted throughout. And then for the 1 and 2, we're going to flip a coin.
Yeah,
so we don't actually we don't have a conversation about those two because we don't want any animosity on this podcast.
No.
We know it's only our first one. We don't want to like tear each other apart. So the 1 and 2 will be a coin flip. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we'll let the fates decide because really, what better judge of art is there than Lady Fortune?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, with that in mind, Anthony, what are you proposing for either the 9 or the 10 spot in our top 10 movies ever list?
Okay, so I am proposing. So my number 5, which is going to be either the 9 or 10, I am proposing Happy Gilmore, Adam Sandler classic. It's just it's probably nostalgia talking, but it is a great film. I myself think back on the days of Adam Sandler in the late 90s, early 2000s as well, and I think to myself, why isn't Will Ferrell laughed at and said and talked about how crappy he is these days? Adam Sandler is. Will Ferrell films aren't good anymore, but for some reason, Adam Sandler, even though he had a great twilight of his career, like Will Ferrell did, Adam Sandler is treated with such disrespect, and I don't get it. Most comic actors do that when they do the same joke 100 times. By the 80th time, it gets a bit annoying. But the first 20 times they did it are objectively good.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I haven't seen Happy Gilmore in a long time. I haven't seen any of his kind of like late 90s Happy Madison pictures for a while. But I remember really liking Happy Gilmore. And, likewise, I looked this up actually because to give the listeners a brief peek behind the curtain, we did discuss these lists, or we mentioned these lists to each other ahead of time, so we
which
could
is going to make me look very foolish because Konrad has actually looked at my films. I have not looked at his. Yeah, I'll just make up things as we go about yours.
Yeah, it's fine. Listen, we're talking about movies on the internet. Facts have no place in this discussion. All right, it's pure. Well, no, sorry. This is all facts. This is all facts.
Sorry, it's
and
all
objective.
It's all objective.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the director of Happy Gilmore is a guy called Dennis Dugan, and he's also directed Big Daddy. Is he?
Big Daddy. He directed Jack and Jill. He directed Grown Ups.
Yes.
So we can give him the credit for the late 90s ones.
Yeah,
but he did also direct all the other ones as well.
There's a steep decline on that bell curve. We're like right in the middle. He was doing all right, and then it was suddenly like, oh boy. But I remember liking this movie, to be honest. And Adam Sandler. It's interesting you mentioned Will Ferrell actually, because I feel like Will Ferrell does not have the dramatic chops that Adam Sandler has as an actor. Like in the right role, Adam Sandler can actually do some good dramatic work, as we will come back to later in our list.
Yeah,
I think. But yeah, an Adam Sandler classic, very funny.
I'm just picking on Will Ferrell. Sorry, I didn't mean to pick on him. I'm like Adam Sandler is my generation. Obviously, Will Ferrell's amazing. I could have put Step Brothers in here.
Like, he is very funny.
Step Brothers are on command. There is the sort of classics, but you know what? Adam Sandler is the OG. Not really the OG, but he's the '90s OG for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And or like this, Happy Gilmore has one of my favorite villain names of all time. Is it Shooter McGavin? Is that his name?
McGavin.
Shooter McGavin, which is like it's up there with. Have you ever seen Kingpin, the Bill Murray bowling movie? Yeah, like his name's Ernie McCracken in that, which is also a great bad guy name for a niche sport. Well, I guess golf isn't really.
And
niche.
Randy Quaid plays an Amish man, and I was the other day because I had my really long beard still. Before I trimmed it, someone called me Amish in the comments. I think it was Donnie Starts actually. Donnie Starts called me Amish. Yeah. But yeah, like in Happy Gilmore, like you can't pass over Carl Weathers. Like Carl Weathers in Happy Gilmore, he plays Chubbs Peterson. He's his coach, and he's got.
I forgot. Yeah,
he's only got one hand because a gator took his hand. And he goes, but I tore one of that bastard's eyes out. Look at that. He's got the gator's eye in his jar.
It's always good to see Carl Weathers in anything, frankly. And I feel like Happy Gilmore was ahead of the game in the sort of return of Carl Weathers that I guess was like reignited by Arrested Development about like 5 or 6 years after it.
Yeah, exactly. I will mention as well before we go off Happy Gilmore. You can't move past without mentioning the fact that Ben Stiller is actually in it.
I don't remember that. Who's he playing?
Yeah, you need to watch this film again. But Ben Stiller is the care home where Happy Gilmore's grandma is. Virginia Venet, that's the name of the grandma. No, that's Julie Bowen's character. I think grandma's just called Grandma.
Yeah, I mean, that I wouldn't put
I
it
think
past.
she's just called Grandma. I think that's the name. But yeah, so basically, Ben Stiller plays the care home worker, and he's like it's like he's working them like a sweatshop, and they're like making blankets, and he's selling them, and one of the old women goes, "My fingers hurt," and he goes, "Oh, your fingers hurt? Well, now your back's gonna hurt because you just pulled landscaping, Judy."
I do remember that line. Ben Stiller is another like guy who I feel like has kind of been maybe lost to time a little bit in the sort of certainly in the 20-teens. Is that what we call them? The 2010s, I guess.
2010s. Yeah.
But like he was like very funny for a stretch there, I think. But yeah, I mean, so it's natural then, as if I mean this actually wasn't pre-planned, but as Lady Fortuna would have it. My number 5 is Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love from 2002, which also stars Adam Sandler. So we have 2 Adam Sandler movies in our top 10.
Well, that's not all. That probably is the last time you see Adam Sandler on this list. But
yeah, wait for Jack and Jill at number 2. Like that'll get some gums flapping. But no, this is an awesome. This is like legitimately. I guess you'd call it a rom-com, but I mean, you're like as we will come back to later for your stuff, a fan of Paul Thomas Anderson as a director, and I think this is probably one of his kind of, I guess his I don't want to say safest because that makes it sound bad, but it's kind of like a romantic comedy really, and it's a lot. Yeah. It's quite sort of simple and I don't know. Conservative, like structurally, when you look at some of the other stuff he did, like I don't know, compared to what was the one with Joaquin Phoenix that he did?
Inherent Vice or The Master?
Yeah, Inherent Vice. I found that really hard to follow.
I loved Inherent Vice. Inherent Vice was made as like it's made like a crime sort of show. It's a crime film, but they also made it like you needed to like he was always on drugs, so you watch it. Like, and it sort of feels like you're on drugs watching it. Like, you know, the plot threads don't really fit very well unless you're really paying attention. Like,
and you're kind of jumping around.
Yeah, really well made. I love that film. Paul Thomas Anderson is one of my favorite directors. And, like, you know, based on the fact that I chose Happy Gilmore first, a lot of people might be thinking that I'll just be memeing this whole time. Let me tell you, this is the objective best films. I didn't choose these, but they just came to me in a dream. But at the same time... I tried to be, and I think Konrad did as well because you know his films are varying too. But I'm trying to include as many genres as I can because this is a movie podcast. This isn't let's talk about you know all these little different independent films and let's talk about all these Oscar-winning films. It's a movie podcast. We love movies. Every person in the world should watch a variety of movies. So
and you know. I do think, like I think it is important as well. Like, obviously, we're gonna have some fun here, people. Don't worry about that. You're in for a fun ride. Yeah. But I mean,
you haven't had fun yet. Don't worry, it's guaranteed. Guaranteed.
You haven't had fun yet. What are you doing? Have fun now. But like I think that there is a legitimate point to be made there. That like Happy Gilmore, there's nothing wrong with liking those kind of movies, you know. Like, and we kind of in our intro not intro package in our like promotional video for this kind of like memed on Christopher Nolan movies a lot because everyone loves Christopher Nolan movies in the 2010, but a lot of those are actually, there you go, we'll come back to that later, don't you worry about that little sneak preview.
For the audio listeners, I just held up the Tenet Blu-ray.
But I mean, some of them are legitimately very, very good movies, and there is nothing wrong with liking those movies. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not allowed to like something because it's popular. And I think talking about Punch Drunk Love briefly, like it's probably one of Paul Thomas Anderson's least popular movies. I think probably less seen than his later stuff.
I think so because it was before he was getting Oscar buzz, and I think once you start getting Oscar buzz, you do go out into sort of more avenues in society. I think There Will Be Blood was probably the first time that he got big Oscar buzz, and I think obviously Daniel Day-Lewis won the Oscar for that, but I think that Punch Drunk Love is a really good film. And it has all the hallmarks of a Paul Thomas Anderson film. Like, the score is amazing in that film.
Yeah, the score, like, I actually looked up, it's this guy called John Brien's score, and it's like, it's very similar to, like, the Johnny Greenwood stuff later, where it's, like, quite chaotic and, like, percussive, and it really is, it like, I think one of the things, Johnny Greenwood's amazing at it as well, but one of the things that Paul Thomas Anderson is great at is using his score to, like, support the themes of his movies. Yep. So in that, like, basically, like, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's like a rom-com about Adam Sandler is a guy with anger issues, and his life is just this mess. house, and he falls in love with Emily Watson, who's a friend of his sister, or one of his 7 sisters, I think. But like the narrative is just really chaotic, and it's this like really cool juxtaposition of this like kind of fairy tale romance that's happening against the backdrop of this like industrial estate in, I don't even think they say where it is, but yeah, and like the score supports that. Like, it's very chaotic in a way that I love, and I love the Johnny Greenwood stuff as well that was done for his later films.
Yeah, and it's also, let's not pass over the fact that it's got the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman in it.
It does, yeah. As a, I believe he's a villainous furniture store slash
Mattress
sex
salesman.
hotline. He's a mattress salesman. That's right. He owns a mattress emporium and also a sex hotline that scams the people who phone it. And Adam Sandler phones it looking for love, and therein lies our plot.
Yeah, and like, this film is it's for people who love romance. It's for people who love seeing a good bad guy in Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's for people who love collecting vouchers off pudding. You know, it's for everyone.
Yeah, if you want to get air miles by buying pudding, this is the movie for you.
Yeah, this is where you get all your tips.
A harebrained scheme.
There's actually something funny that I know about, and this, you know, I know about this somehow. I can't remember how I know. Might be wrong, listeners. It's not wrong. Trust me. Basically, after he finished, Paul Thomas Anderson finished his film Magnolia. He finished Magnolia in the late 90s. He was doing a press conference, and that film, like, it was critically acclaimed. Tom Cruise is in that one as well, actually.
I've never seen that.
Yeah. Well, I have seen it very long ago. When I first saw There Will Be Blood, I went and watched every Paul Thomas Anderson film ever, but I haven't watched it since then. Yeah. But basically, in Magnolia, after Magnolia, he was doing a press conference because all this buzz, like, and a reporter asked Paul Thomas Anderson, "What's your next film going to be?" And he said, "An Adam Sandler comedy." And they all erupted laughing, and actually, that's what he did.
Little did they know that. But I mean, I think it's good to have the Adam Sandler representation on here, because as Uncut Gems showed us last year, and this showed us, and there was another movie he made, Funny People, in like the mid 2000s.
Judd Apatow.
Yeah.
But that was very much new wave Seth Rogen-y Judd Apatow comedy.
Yeah.
But also, obviously, those comedies have a fair bit of drama in them, which Adam Sandler films, if they do have drama, it's very high pitched. But
But I mean, he can, when push comes to shove, Adam Sandler can perform in a role. Right, okay, so now comes the moment where we need to decide which of these is coming in at number 9 and which of these is coming in at number 10.
Listen. I'm happy for Happy Gilmore to be number 10, because I think that there's a lot of viewers of this podcast who our credibility will go directly out the window if we say that Punch Drunk Love is
worse than Happy
Gilmore. But
objectively, remember,
it's objective. Like, this is all objective. Like, we are the voice of the movie gods here. But I would say, I personally, if I was to choose a film to watch, more likely there are more situations in life where I would choose to watch Happy Gilmore. Yeah. Having said that, I believe Punch Drunk Love is a better film. Yeah. But
you wouldn't show Punch Drunk Love to children.
It wasn't in my objective top 5.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. Like, that's, I think that's fair enough. So number 10 is Happy Gilmore, and number 9 is Punch Drunk Love. So Adam Sandler propping up the top 10 list with two solid performances there. So now we go to both of our number 4s. So Anthony, let's have it.
Okay. So for number 4, now I've got a few films in my list that you would consider to be critically acclaimed, or just like sort of high quality cinema, right?
A Kino experience.
So I know some of these films, if I put them in my number 4, people aren't going to really like that. However, because the films that are coming later aren't really cinema, if you know what I mean.
It's about what you like.
It's all cinema. It's all cinema.
Yeah.
So this one here, we were just talking about it. I'm putting it in number 4. I think maybe if you like, these are the objective best. But if I was just going to say what are the best, you know, this one might be which film I think is the highest quality film that I've seen. This one probably would be that. But in terms of like my favorite best films ever, if it makes any sense at all, the distinction, I think it does. It is There Will Be Blood. We were just talking
about Anderson, back again.
This time supported by Daniel Day-Lewis takes his first leading role in a Paul Thomas Anderson film, which, to be honest with you, made me fall in love with Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, I think this is the first Paul Thomas Anderson movie I ever saw. I don't think I'd seen any of his work.
This is my first Paul Thomas Anderson film I ever seen as well.
Yeah, and it is like a really good onboarding, and it's weird actually. Like just because you mentioned Daniel Day-Lewis there, I'd never seen Last of the Mohicans. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I have, yes.
But I went and watched that this week just because it showed up on Netflix, and it's really weird seeing like Daniel Day-Lewis in that as a kind of. He's not, he doesn't turn in a bad performance in it, but it's a very stereotypical kind of like heroic leading man performance.
Yeah,
and then seeing him in There Will Be Blood, where he's still the lead, but I feel like this was maybe this is me showing my age. That this movie kind of struck me the way it did, but I felt like this was Daniel Day-Lewis like announcing himself as an amazing actor here.
Well, definitely, this is the start of him getting an Oscar nomination for everything he does.
But, yeah. Just like Lincoln, there you go. Have another one for that.
Yeah,
Phantom Thread, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So there's this. But the thing is about him, he's always been amazing. Like, Gangs of New York, fantastic. He
was good in that.
Yeah. So he's in a film called In the Name of the Father, which tells the story of some men who were wrongly arrested, and they were suspected to be IRA members.
Okay.
Which I believe started his path down the road of empathizing with the Irish, and now he actually lives outside of sort of in County Wicklow in the Wicklow Mountains in Ireland. And he's renounced British citizenship. Sorry, Konrad. And
we're still having him. We're still claiming him.
And now he's Irish nationality.
You don't get away that easy, Daniel.
Yeah, and I think he's also retired about 5 times. Like,
yeah.
The story of him whenever he was. I think he went to Italy to work as a cobbler in the 90s, and then Steven Spielberg and Leonardo DiCaprio had to go and meet with him in Italy to convince him to do Gangs of New York to get him back into the film industry,
bring him out of retirement. Yeah, I think I don't know that much about his acting process, but based on the performances he gets out, I think it's probably quite exhausting for him to take roles. So I could definitely see him sort of coming out of a movie and being like, okay, I'm not going to do this for a while. I'm going to go make shoes instead.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this was also talking about the start of like the sort of the award streak for Daniel Day-Lewis. I think this is also the start of the sort of, there's a few actors who come and go, right? And they're around for a while in a big way. They're in all these big films, and they don't like disappear, but they do sort of then take a back seat in terms of people's mindset, like in the zeitgeist of film. I mean, and that is, for example, Paul Dano. Now, Paul Dano in this film was amazing, and this really announced himself, and he sort of became one of the best character actors in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Now, I think he's obviously still going, but you see him less and less and less.
Yeah, I'm trying to think the last thing I saw him in.
Well, not the last thing he did, but the last thing I watched that he was in, I watched Looper. But
was he a Looper? I don't remember him in that.
He was his mate at the start.
Oh, okay. It has been a long time since I watched Looper, to be honest.
Yeah, he's in Looper. So Looper, There Will Be Blood, in Prisoners, unbelievable.
Yeah, he's very good in that.
So Paul Dano is, but I equate him to like sort of like the sort of the awards version of just Joseph Gordon-Levitt, they were both really popular at the same time, and they were sort of in all these big films at the same time. Paul Dano, in my opinion, was a better actor. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I'm always going to love him because of Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah.
And 10 Things I Hate About You. But
yes, yeah.
But basically, I think Paul Dano should still be one of the big. He never made the transition to the leading guy. He made a few films.
Yeah,
he made a few films. Yeah, I don't know, but he's a really good character actor anyway.
He's a great character actor. And There Will Be Blood. So for those who haven't seen it, it's basically Daniel Day-Lewis is an oil man, as he would say, and it's about him slowly losing any shred of his humanity as he attempts to get richer and richer.
It's a character study. It's 100%. If you want to know what a character study film is, this is that. It's nothing but the story of this man's life, basically, and all of the other characters are just there to service his growth, or non-growth, as it were. But it's a fantastic film. It will always be one of my favorite films of all time. Even just the practical effects, there's an oil rig in it that explodes, and then there's a whole intense scene where like he can't really hear because the explosions went off, and it's like sort of
Yeah.
muffled, and the score again, Johnny Greenwood's score in this is
yeah.
absolutely incredible.
I think that was the first one that Johnny Greenwood did for Paul
it
Thomas
was.
Anderson. But
Well, this
but
is
they
only
worked together.
As far as I'm aware, this is the next film after Punch Drunk Love for Paul Thomas Anderson. Punch Drunk Love was like 2002, and this was like 2007. I think there was like a 5-year gap.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, I was just trying to think when Boogie Nights was, but I think Boogie Nights was before Punch Drunk Love. So
Boogie Nights was actually
a
a second film.
Something. Yeah. Okay.
1997 was Boogie Nights.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's longer ago than I thought. But yeah, it's beautifully shot, and like as you say, the score's amazing. I think it's really interesting as well, like narratively, how you have Paul Dano as like this priest, but it's not really that interested in like moralizing his character against Daniel Plainview. Like both of those characters are presented as kind of awful in their own way, and it's this really interesting character study of a priest and an oil man encountering each other at various points in their lives, and without really kind of like taking a moral side in the debate until the very end. I won't spoil what happens, but
exactly, yeah, and like it's an interesting setup to the film because it's like he's going to try and find land to drill oil on. So the whole idea of him being an oil man, he needs to swindle people, and he needs to like sort of like convince them that their land is worthless.
He's buying land for quails.
Yeah, he's buying land for quails so that he gets it really cheap, and because he wants a place to go and shoot quails with his son, and then. He gets it, drills the oil, and the family is all over the place. But it's a great film. Like and I don't have much more to say. What about you? What's your number 4?
So I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you've actually seen this one. I don't think many people have in the grand scheme of things. But that's 1997's Perfect Blue, which is an anime directed by the now deceased Satoshi Kon.
An anime what? No, I'm just kidding.
An animation, a Japanimation. I don't know if that's a problematic term anymore. I apologize if it is. Like that's what.
It's the name of a country.
When anime came to like the UK in the 90s, when I would literally just buy up every VHS that came to this country, no matter whether it was like borderline hentai or like Fist of the North Star or whatever, because literally you just had to buy whatever. You
said borderline hentai and then said the word fist, and I didn't know what you were going to say.
Yeah, like, this is my anime section, all right. You're not allowed to talk. But yeah, like I would just buy everything, and like a lot of it was trash. That I still have a very big soft spot for, hence my fandom of terrible voice acting. But this is one of them, and it is like I remember seeing a critic's quote for this that said it's like Walt Disney and Alfred Hitchcock made a movie, and it is amazing. I can't recommend it enough to anyone. It's basically about a Japanese pop idol who decides she's going to become an actress instead, and it's this like examination of identity and her changing identity, and there's essentially like this kind of murder mystery going on where someone is killing the people who are wronging her, or like that this person perceives to be wronging her. And she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know what's real anymore because she's like losing a sense of self. And it's like underpinned by these like amazing J-pop tracks from, I can't remember the name of the person. Masahiro Kumi is the name of the person who did the score. But it's well worth checking out. I won't spend too long on it because obviously Asia hasn't seen it. But if you're in the mood for something that is really, really a lot of Satoshi Kon stuff. You've seen Paprika, haven't you?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the Ghibli stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's
what's the really, like, this is one I need to watch. Is it Akira? It's really
Akira, yeah, is
that like made in the 80s?
It might have been 89, but yeah, that was like really seminal for sort of developing like the cyberpunk aesthetic.
Yeah, so I haven't seen that, but I've heard it's very good. So that's I've seen sort of the Disney Ghibli stuff, like the stuff.
I think the Ghibli stuff's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, but I mean, like, that's like the Disney of Japan. But it's still, I'm a Disney file too. So, but at the same time, that's all. I haven't really ventured out of that. Cut like anime TV shows and Ghibli. That's all I've really seen.
Ghibli. Well, I mean, that's unless you really go looking for it, it is quite hard to find that stuff. But I mean, yeah, Satoshi Kon did a movie. Like his stuff like ranges from, he made a movie called Paprika, which is like almost surrealist. Like it's very hard to follow the narrative, which isn't really my kind of thing. But this is a lot more structured. But if you're in the mood for like a kind of murder mystery with a great soundtrack and some amazing editing, Perfect Blue is the movie for you.
I mean, murder mystery sells me on it, to be honest with you.
It's very good. I'll have to show it to you at some point.
What was the name of the Ghibli anime that we went to see in...
The Wind Rises.
The Wind Rises. Oh, I really like that film.
It was the
Prince Charles Theatre in London we went to.
It was, yeah. It's about the guy who makes the Zero aircraft for Japan in World War II, which is like classic Ghibli or classic Hayao Miyazaki, where it's like really, it's presented in this really kind of like fluffy, nice way.
Idyllic way, yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Idyllic is the word, but it's about this guy who makes fighter planes for the Japanese during World War II. And obviously, as is the case with every one of his movies, there's an implied... Oh, in fact, actually, it's not implied, but there's a significant character who's like dying in it, because all of his movies have to have some heartbreak and
tragedy.
Yep. But yeah, so there we go. Those are our fourth spots. I think it's only fair, given you haven't seen Perfect Blue, for us to say that Perfect Blue comes in at number 8, and There Will Be Blood comes in at number 7 here.
I think that's really good. I would agree. I would agree with that. Because I need There Will Be Blood to be as high as possible. Some of the films that I'm having on here later, I know there's going to be people in the comments, hopefully really agreeing with me. But I feel like I have to justify I have to justify the objective opinion. So yeah, okay. So I'm happy with that.
We're showing our working. It's like a maths exam. Like, you can't just put the answer. Yeah. We have to show our working as to how we arrived at these.
Let me just say, if I win the coin toss for 1 and 2, the memes are going to be had. Right.
If you win the coin toss for the best movie of all time, this podcast is over. Like, we might as well pack our bags. That's assuming I know what your number 1 is, which I'm pretty sure I do.
You know. The listeners, the keen-eyed listeners who've been there from the start of the After Dark podcast will know too.
They know. OGs know where we're going with this. Okay, so what is your number 3, or your third movie, Anthony?
My third movie that I'm going to put in is going to be The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which is... it's a low budget, like, sort of independent film that was released in 2019. My wife and I got a Omnipass, which is basically the cinema chain in Ireland is called Omniplex, and for like 13 quid a month or something, you can go to see as many films as you want, but each film you can only see once. So we when we only had one child, we would like pawn him off on someone. and go to the cinema as much as we could. I think for like a couple of months in a row, we went to the cinema like 3 times a week, which was unbelievable.
Heaven.
It's heaven. Like, that's what we like to do. On my birthday that same year, actually, we went to the cinema. We went to this year, actually, just before lockdown. So we went to the cinema 4 times on my birthday. That was my birthday treat.
That's great.
Yeah, we went to see Bombshell. 1917, is that what it's called?
Oh yeah, the Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit we saw as well. And there was one other one which I can't remember. But anyway, it was a really good day. But yeah, so Last Black Man in San Francisco. It stars Jimmy Fails. It's directed by Joe Talbot. Now, this is really interesting about this film. It was written by Joe Talbot and Joe Talbot and Jimmy Fails. Sorry, but Joe Talbot. This is his first ever directed film, like his first film he's directed.
Okay.
Jimmy Fails is like his best mate, who, as the title would say, he's a black man in San Francisco, and they come from San Francisco, and this film is really like a love story to San Francisco in a way, but it's also a strange pseudo based on Jimmy Fails' real life, because his name is Jimmy Fails in the film, and that's his real name. And the storyline is sort of semi based on his life. So basically, I'm not gonna, again, it's just like a bit like Perfect Blue. Not many people will have seen this film. I would highly recommend going and seeing it wherever you can get a chance to see this. But I'll just sort of mention what it's about, and then we can move on from it, because I just wanted to include it because it affected me and my wife Emma so much. Like, we just love this film. It's about a guy called Jimmy Fails who has been told his whole life that his family had a house, a really high quality, like sort of in a nice neighborhood house in San Francisco, and it was at a time where sort of certain areas of the city were getting gentrified, and sort of it was growing, and like eventually over time, like the black community got moved out of the city into sort of more suburban, more different communities than they were living in. And
is this present day?
Present day, it's set, yeah.
Okay.
And so they live in a world where the old communities where they would have their parents would have grown up and things were gentrified, and he longs for his family to get back that house. So he actually, it's really interesting the way they set it up. So he actually goes back to the house. The white family that lives in there, he'll go back to the house and he'll like paint the windowsills and he'll do the gardening because he's trying to keep the house looking really nice. Because in his mind, this house will be his. It's his family's house. His grandfather built it, and one day it will be his. So that's sort of the setup. And he and like obviously the family who lives there don't like him doing that. There's a whole tension there and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to mention an actor called Jonathan Majors. He's like the sort of the co-star, you would say, plays Montgomery Allen, and he plays a really sort of, I don't know what you would call him. He's a real sort of singular person. What do you call someone who's like sort of their own person, and he's not he doesn't mix with the crowd, so to speak. A
tall poppy, I believe, is the expression.
Okay. A tall poppy. Well, he's very poetic. He's an artist basically, and I'm not going to mention much more, but just watch his performance because he's continually like sort of breaking into poem to people. Like they come to him and then he'll break into a poem. They've got really awesome moments in the storyline. Where like as you said earlier with the film, the score is really sort of as if it was like made first and the film was made around it.
Yeah.
And it all sort of comes to a head. I'm not going to obviously give any spoilers, but there's this character Montgomery Allen writes a play, and they put the play on, and it's really emotional and really amazing, and I just love it. Anyway, that's the film.
That sounds really good. Yeah, I like the idea of. You say it's more of a drama, like not really a comedy.
It's not really a comedy. It's like any film. There'll be moments for a little bit of a grin, but I don't think it's a drama. It's a drama.
No, I like the idea of kind of like delivering metaphor for the gentrification of San Francisco through an individual longing to return to their familial home. That sounds really cool. And I have scrolled past that several times on it's on Sky at the moment.
Oh, is it?
And I've had a look at it and I was like, I should watch that. And then you mentioned it to me, and so now I will definitely watch that movie at some point in the near future.
It's really good, really good.
Very good. Okay,
we'll watch Joe Talbot's career with great interest.
Yeah. Do you say that's the first movie that he's directed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
so it's always cool when someone gets a strong directorial debut. It sort of spells promising things.
Like Ema and I were so like we were waiting. I know independent films don't usually get nominated for Oscars and things, but Ema and I were convinced how good this film is that we were going to see something. Like we were going to see some nomination for it somewhere.
I had to go to Green Book.
Didn't happen. Give
it to Green Book. That great movie that everyone loved, and it was a great nomination. Oh, this is sarcasm, by the way.
Haven't seen it. You wouldn't recommend it then?
No. It's like basically if you what all the stuff that you just said about The Last Black Man in San Francisco, where it sounds like the writing is quite kind of grounded and the characters are really really well realized. If you take all of that and just reverse it, then you have Green Book. It's just like, hey, watch two characters fix racism. Okay, great.
I'll be watching that then.
Yeah. So my number 3 is probably both tonally and stylistically on the other end of the spectrum to yours, and that is 1982's Blade Runner, which is one of two Ridley Scott movies that are in my top 5. I think a lot of people have seen this movie. If you haven't, it's about a guy played by Harrison Ford called Deckard, who is basically a hired contract killer for the police force, whose job is to track down escaped replicants, which are like androids, and kill them. Because in the far-flung future of, I'm trying to remember what year Blade Runner is set in. I think it's like 2040.
Yeah, it's not that far in the future.
Yeah, so we've not got long to get here. Yeah. But yeah, there are replicants that do a lot of manual labor or sex work, and sometimes they yearn for freedom. And I think, have you seen Blade Runner? I can't remember.
Yes, I will. I think I watched it on your recommendation. I haven't watched the second one yet. Which
that's also very good.
Apparently, it's very very good. But in my mind, like the second one isn't like, it's not necessary viewing. In terms of for Blade Runner fans, it's Blade Runner is Blade Runner. I think the second one is. I'm looking forward to watching it, but I think when you make a sequel so far later after you made the original and it's a different director and it's all different, I don't really view it as a real sequel. And I haven't seen it yet, and I'm sure it's great. But in my mind, it's like, yeah, but the Blade Runner was what it was. Blade Runner is what it was, and the other thing is like a cool, almost fan-made thing that we can enjoy.
The weakest parts of the sequel are the bits that tie it back to the original Blade Runner, I think. But it's more, and this is true of the original as well. It's more just like how they realize this kind of cyberpunk setting, these like kind of swooping shots of this kind of hazy skyline just full of pollution, and these like hollow vid ads scrolling along against the skyline with like Atari and stuff advertised. Like it's amazing to see. It's one of those things where I think when I first watched it, I was probably 16 or something. I didn't really appreciate it because it didn't look dated then. There are bits of it that have dated fairly poorly, but it's more just when you have been exposed to the stuff that was influenced by this movie first, it's easy to not realize how important the aesthetic of Blade Runner is. But it is like absolutely, both visually it's amazing. The Vangelis score is awesome, particularly for someone like me who likes cyberpunk or like synthwave rather. I like cyberpunk as well. And the performances of Harrison Ford and Rutger Hauer are great. I think even if you haven't seen Blade Runner, I think most people know like of Rutger Hauer's monologue at the end of the film with the all those memories will be lost like tears in the rain, time to die.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely amazing, this movie, and I think it gets better every time you watch it as well. I think the problem with Blade Runner is people gush over it so much that like when people go to watch it, it's like they're disappointed by it because it's a bit of a slow burn.
But so I even love like the models of the city they make. So like the way like the camera goes through this very, to us these days, is very obviously a miniature. But it just adds to it, and it sort of really puts you in the world. Yeah, absolutely great choice.
Yeah, the world building is amazing.
I know we are sort of flip-flopping here each time, and it's not, we didn't intend this, but I'm happy for Blade Runner to go in at, what would it be? That
would be hold on.
5?
No, don't. 8 and 7, 6 and 5. Yeah, Blade Runner would be 5, and The Last Black Man in San Francisco would be number 6.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Oh, there we go. See, this is how you debate or talk about movies. You just objectively arrive at an arbitrary place within a list, and
as I
everyone's
say,
happy.
these ideas have just been pumped into our brains. We haven't chosen these ideas. Happy Gilmore is the 10th best film ever made. That's just
you simply can't argue with it.
Yeah, that's just how it goes.
Right. Okay. So now we're at the number 2 slot.
So number 2 for us, number 3, 4 for our
number 4
list.
and 3. Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to be controversial. And I know
I already know what this is.
Yeah, because I'm putting the Back to the Future trilogy as my number 2. Gotta be.
Even 3. Actually, I say even 3. I haven't seen 3 for a long time. I remember it being not as good as the first 2.
What?
As I say, I haven't seen it for probably about 15 years at least. So I remember it not being as good as.
How old were you when you first saw the third Back to the Future?
I was probably about 15, 16.
So you'd left your cowboy days. Like you'd left the days where you longed to be a cowboy. That explains.
Like I was watching it cynically.
Explains a lot. That explains a lot. You were watching it cynically. You were watching it thinking, "Jeez, they didn't have to make a third one." Like, but no, unbelievable. Back to the Future. I think people who follow this channel know how much I love time travel stuff.
Yeah.
And I got to give it to the OG in my life, Back to the Future. This is I no word of a lie, right? My brother and me watched this film. All 3 of these films, back to back for about 7 months. Every day we'd watch at least one of them. Every day we'd watch at least one of them. And there was even some days, like after school we get home, we'd watch 2. On the weekends, we'd watch all 3. Like it's honestly, we watched it so much.
I mean, they're great movies.
The second one I've seen the least because our disc was broken.
Oh, that's harsh.
So we'd always get to a certain point and then like turn the disc off, go back in, and then skip like half an hour forward so that we can make sure we missed the jump.
Yeah. I didn't realize when you told me about this. When I looked it up, because I knew Robert Zemeckis directed the first one. I didn't realize he directed the other 2 as well.
Realized.
he was there was like a 10-year stretch there where Robert Zemeckis, between like 1985 when the first one came out and like 1995, he was just churning out absolute bangers of movies. Like, so he got Castaway was a bit later, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit was in there, Forrest Gump is in there, all three Back to the Future movies. You know, and I think most people would say Back to the Future 1 is, you know, one of the best movies ever made, certainly within the kind of like action adventure genre. Like it's almost. There's a movie I'm going to talk about a bit later when we get into the concept of like a quote unquote perfect movie and what that actually means. And I think you judge each movie's standard of perfection against what it's actually trying to achieve. And I think Back to the Future 1 is pretty much a perfect movie for that kind of like fun action adventure thing it's going for. Like I don't think there's a bad scene in that movie. And the second one as well. The second one's really good too.
But I've talked about before, like how successful the movie is at making me feel nostalgia for the 50s when I've never lived there. You know, it almost made me want to vote leave, you know.
I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to say anything about that. There'll be no politics on this show. There's no politics in art, all right? Of course there isn't. But I know what you mean. Like that sort of that nostalgia for the 50s. It's sort of like when you look at like Grease did a similar kind of thing where there was a lot of that. Grease was in the late 70s, but there was that. I think it was late 70s. It might have been very early 80s Grease. But it was the same kind of thing where it's like this nostalgia for the 50s, and they both did a good job of realizing it. But I think Back to the Future's is a lot more charming than Grease's. I say that as someone who hasn't seen Grease for quite a while, so I don't want to like dunk on a movie that I don't remember that well.
I like Grease too, to be honest with you.
I remember liking it.
Yeah, it is good. But yeah, Robert Zemeckis had a great run. Like you can't not mention Forrest Gump. Like Forrest Gump was close to getting into my top 5, to be honest with you.
It's interesting with Forrest Gump, and actually, to be honest, I feel like the worm has turned slightly on Tom Hanks's stretch there of dramatic movies. So you had like, as we said, like Castaway, Forrest Gump. You had like Road to Perdition, The Green Mile, and there's another one that I'm missing. I guess The Terminal you could put in there.
Philadelphia.
But Philadelphia, yeah. So that was a little bit earlier, but he had like this string of performances as a lead actor, which were all like really, really strong, and he got a lot of Oscar buzz. I'm sure he must have won.
He won 2 Oscars in a row.
Did he? Was that for Forrest Gump and then
Philadelphia? Forrest Gump.
Philadelphia, yeah. But I feel like the worm has turned slightly on those movies now, and they're not really talked about in lists of, you know, really, really great movies. And I think Forrest Gump absolutely is. Like I think Forrest Gump's a great movie.
I love the genre of like just going through someone's whole life. Like I think obviously we don't go through his whole life, but I mean for most of it we do. I like, what would you call that? Like a biopic. Yeah,
like a fictional biopic.
Yeah. Like I love that. I love that genre, to be honest with you. In fact, one of my favorite of that genre is obviously a bit more out of the box, but it would be the Tim Burton film with Ewan
Big Fish.
Big Fish. Big Fish would be one of my favorites of that genre because sorry, go on. But it's so out of the box. It's not the same as Forrest Gump's very like sort of grounded and realistic to a certain extent. Like he can still run 100 miles an hour. But and you know how much I love the film Forrest Gump, because as I mentioned on the podcast before, I named my second child Forrest. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, talking about historical biopics, I think it's really interesting as a genre, but it's not actually that common. I can't think of that many others, but I think they stand aside from regular biopics because or biopics based on real people, because I think a lot of the time when people make biopics about actual people who lived, the intention is either to basically say, look how wonderful this person was, and present like a really kind of bland, let's just celebrate the life of Ray Charles or whatever, and then they hope that the music is often on musicians. They hope that catchy music is enough to carry you through to the end. And those kind of movies can be really boring. Whereas with a fictional one, something like Forrest Gump, really, I mean, it is about his life, but more what Forrest Gump is actually about is about seeing various snapshots of American life through the eyes of Forrest Gump as he goes through his life, and that's really interesting. And Big Fish is a bit like that as well, although it's more just meeting weird people rather than a sort of chronology of American life through through 50 years. But Robert Zemeckis is amazing. Like I don't actually know. I think he did Welcome to Marwen recently, which is the Steve Carell movie.
Well, he's also got a film coming out. He's doing Pinocchio.
Oh shit, is he?
Yeah. But I thought like Pinocchio was originally going to be Guillermo del Toro. Maybe there's maybe two of them are coming out. He's doing the Disney remake, but I think Guillermo del Toro is doing like his own version of Pinocchio somehow.
His will be like a creature feature, as is traditional for Guillermo del Toro.
I will say, while we're just on biopics though, it's interesting. Before we move on from this, my favorite musician is one of my favorite musicians is a guy called Johnny Flynn, who you've heard, but I've seen him live multiple times, met him and everything. He's a fantastic fella, but his acting career has taken off now because he's always been a stage actor and he's going into film now. And he's recently released, which I haven't seen. I don't even know if it was in the cinemas over here, but I'm gonna get the DVD when it comes out. He was in Stardust, which is a early biopic of David Bowie, and he stars as David Bowie. Now, every review I've read of it says he was amazing in it, but the issue is that they didn't get any licensing for the songs.
Yeah.
So there was no original David Bowie songs, and that's exactly to your point. If you don't have the songs, or if they're not used correctly for a musical biopic, it sort of really taints the film.
Yeah, it does, and I think from what I've heard of that it is very much of that sort of biopic style, where it's like, oh, look how amazing this person's life was, which is a bit kind of saccharine on its own. But then when you don't even have the music to really like kind of lean into that, oh, look how amazing this person is, it's kind of it's a bit kind of milquetoast, and that doesn't really achieve anything.
Actually, while we're on it, did you know Sacha Baron Cohen was gonna play Freddie Mercury, and he was in like the production. Yeah. He was attached to the production and a producer of it for like years, right? Yeah. And finally, he pulled out of the project because the band Queen didn't want to actually portray Freddie Mercury's life realistically, to the lengths that Sacha Baron Cohen wanted. Now, everyone I've talked, I've not seen the film, to be quite honest here, because I don't support Bryan Singer. But basically, the reason why people are saying that they love it, and I tell them that, and they're like, but it shows really harsh stuff. But these are like real, like sort of middle-aged conservative people who are probably thinking he's gay, you know. Whereas I'm like Sacha Baron Cohen says, like literally he would have parties where, you know, he would have like little people, I don't know what the correct term is, but, you know, little people with dwarfism walking around. Like, this is how horrendous it was. Freddie Mercury would have them walking around and he would be sniffing cocaine off their head.
Yeah, they had like platters of cocaine strapped to their heads.
Like that is
they don't show that.
They're not going to put that in the film. So, you know, I just thought that was an interesting thing to say.
Yeah, no, I think that's a classic example of a bad biopic. And also, actually, we are way off topic here, but mentioning Johnny Flynn, you should see Emma if you haven't. I've very good in that.
I saw it in the cinema with my Omnipass. It is great. Amazing. I went to see it with my mum, actually. And people who watch Dark Discussions know my mum, and the whole time she was just like, "Oh my god!"
Scandalous period piece.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, Back to the Future is an amazing trilogy. I think we don't need to say too much about it because
everyone knows
most
Back to
people
the
have
Future.
seen it.
Everyone knows why I love it. I think everyone who likes Back to the Future loves it for the same reason.
If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. They're all very good movies. Maybe not the third one. We'll see about the third one.
The third one. It's an objective list.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's a fair point. The numbers don't lie. The maths has put this where it sits. Okay. Well, so this is slightly before Back to the Future, but only just. And tonally, again, a bit different. My number 2 is John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. One of the best horror movies ever made. Some of the best practical effects ever put on screen. Hasn't aged a day. Ennio Morricone did the theme, and he's doing his best John. So that's a guy who did the a lot of spaghetti westerns. I mean, he did loads of stuff, but he's probably most famous for the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly theme. But he did loads of stuff. It's just The Thing is amazing. It's so goddamn good. It's so tense. Kurt Russell's great. I think you haven't seen this one, have you?
No, you've been telling me to watch it for years.
It's. I mean, you have to be okay with gore. And some jump scares, John Carpenter. Yeah, but it's one of the best horror movies ever made. I love horror movies, The Thing is right up there for me in terms of any that have ever been made. In fact, both of my top 2 are horror movies.
Oh, really? Yeah, the horror is a genre that I'm not fully au fait with, but it's also a genre that I wouldn't choose to watch too often. When I do dip into it, I love it. Like I absolutely loved The Witch, Robert Eggers' film from the last few years. The Witch, yeah. I also like. I watched also his next one, The Lighthouse. I don't know if you'd call that a horror, more of a sort of surrealist thriller.
Yeah,
but
it has horror elements, but it's not scary.
Yeah,
I'd say.
So I and I'm looking forward to his next one, The Northman, which is a Viking tale. But basically, horror isn't a genre that I would seek out, if I'm quite honest with you. Although I recently watched Halloween for the first time, and I felt that was dated quite a bit, but at the same time, I enjoyed it.
That's John Carpenter as well. Like I think I know what you mean with that. Like I think that's another one of those movies where you have to look at like what had come before it, which is to say, basically, like you had like Psycho, and then you had Giallo, which is like Italian like whodunit murder mystery movies and slashers. They before that you had Psycho, then you had Black Christmas, and then you had Halloween. So they like invented a genre basically.
Yeah. I also watched Children of the Corn around the same time, and I will say Halloween was better than Children of the Corn. But my God, Children of the Corn is hilarious.
Children of the Corn is a shitty movie. I hate those movies so much. It's just, and like the terrible special effects they use at the end when like the one who walks among the rows is like coming out of the corn to try and stop them from burning the field, and it's just like it's dated. No one dies in that goddamn movie either. Like I watched
at the very start they kill a whole diner full of people.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. But then for the rest of the movie, it's just like, no one's dying ever in this goddamn movie. It's supposed to be a horror film. And, I don't need blood and guts and people to die. But, like, when you have nothing else to hang your hat on, you need to be killing people in interesting ways. And,
Okay, but, I agree with that.
But, I mean, John Carpenter, I sort of go hot and cold a bit with horror. Like, I love some kinds of horror, particularly, like, 80s horror. I don't like a lot of modern... like jump scare fests, just because
Insidious.
It'll make me, like Insidious, I don't really like because it'll make me jump, but I'm not actually really scared or like invested in this in any way. So
Paranormal
I tend to
Activity.
Paranormal Activity was okay. Like the first one was scary. I felt like it kind of had its one thing that it did quite well.
Yeah,
and they absolutely plumbed that one thing for.
And they kind of invented a genre too. Like a new genre of horror, like that's been used a number of times now as well.
Yeah, I mean they took the Blair Witch Project kind of found footage thing and developed it. Which I think was admirable. But I mean the thing is just if you love want to see like amazing practical effects of like gross aliens, like basically it's about like, this Antarctic research crew who come into contact with an alien that can mimic whatever it comes into contact with, and it's in a way that a lot of the best horror movies are. It's not actually really about the monster. It's about like the human drama that's going on in the research station as these people stop trusting one another and slowly descend into madness, and it's amazing. So we have to decide which one is going where in our list now.
Well, I'm very secure in myself.
I think yours is. I think not Blade Runner. I think Back to the Future is. It's a trilogy that you love so much that I think it has to go in at number 2. I'm happy to have. I'm happy to allow it.
Number 3.
Number 3. Sorry, rather.
Number 3 for Back to the Future.
You almost showed your hand there.
Oh, don't worry. They know what's coming. They know what's coming.
Okay, so it's official. Number 4 is John Carpenter's The Thing. Number 3 is the entire Back to the Future trilogy.
And thank you for not kicking up a fuss about the fact there's 3 going in. I mean, let's be honest. Fine. It was a pre-planned.
We don't make the rules. We're simply vessels for this. We deliver this to you.
Well, I will say the Back to the Future sort of set the precedent for a style of filmmaking which was done in Pirates of the Caribbean later, where you made the first one, it was really good, and then the second and third you write them and they lead into each other. Like that's what they did, and like they did the same in Pirates of the Caribbean too. Like the first one, they were like, oh my god, this actually really worked. Right, let's write 2 more then. They make it into a trilogy. Yeah, but yeah, I'm really happy with that. Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
You give your one first.
Okay.
And then we'll go on to mine after. Because mine is, let's be honest, mine is the objective best film of all time.
Yeah, we simply can't get around that. Okay, so my number 1, talking about movies that I think are as close to perfect as possible. My number one is 1979's Alien. It's the second Ridley Scott movie on my list. I think this movie just achieves everything that it sets out to do, and it's incredibly ambitious in what it's trying to do. The only parts of it that have aged poorly, I think, are a couple of shots of the alien, of the xenomorph, when it's shown in full body right at the end, and also in the scene with Dallas, the captain, in the vents. But in terms of tension, set design, Jerry Goldsmith's score, which isn't actually used very much, but when it's there, it's amazing. The photography, like the planetary vistas, which are all models. It is a beautiful film to look at. It's like Sigourney Weaver's performance and John Hurt, Ian Holm, Harry Dean Stanton. Like, it's got a superstar cast. It's just, I could watch this movie at any time of day, just whenever, and I will just gush over it every time I see it.
I really like the film too. I'm going to be honest. Ian Holm's Bilbo Baggins, isn't he? Jeez,
yes, he is.
What a legend.
Yeah.
But no, it's really great. And one thing I love about this film, like, I think, which is really strange, I think a lot of screenwriters don't know how to write female characters. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a thing called a Bechdel test for a reason.
Yeah.
Where like two female characters have to have names and they have to talk to each other about something that isn't a man.
Yeah,
that's the test, and you would be surprised how many films fail that test.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe Alien fails that test actually, but it doesn't need to pass it because the fact of the matter is Ripley is such a fantastic character, and like what I really love about it is I think you might be able to correct me a little bit of my inaccuracies in this, but I think. When they originally wrote the script, Ripley was a male character.
Yeah. Ripley started off as a man.
Yeah, and that's. I'm not saying that's the way to write females, just write them as a man. But I'm saying that's one way maybe to, if some writers obviously have a block because let's be honest, we know the world we live in. A lot of writers who get successful are men.
Yep.
For one reason or another, no fault of their own. No, just fault of the, it's the way that this society has been formed. And hopefully it's slowly changing. But at the same time, that's how it is. And these men, a lot of them don't know how to write women. George R. R. Martin has a great quote. They said, "How do you write such compelling and like deep women?" And he's like, "The thing is, I always." Pictured women as human beings.
Yeah, that's the start. See, that is the point, though. I think with a lot of this, and talking about the Bechdel test, it's not infallible. I think some people refer to it as like the be all and end all of criticism. Like if something passes or fails the Bechdel test, it is therefore good. But I think it's really, and that's not true. But it is really useful as just a benchmark for saying like there aren't enough like female characters talking to each other in this movie, and one of the great things about Alien is I actually don't know now that I think about it if it does pass the test. It might do because Ripley and I can't remember Veronica Cartwright's character's name, but they yeah, I know, but they have several conversations where they're very bitchy to each other. But the realization of Ripley as a character, it's interesting that she did kind of start as a man because she's quite, in the first movie, she's quite gender neutral, I think. It's not until Aliens when they introduce newts and kind of bring up the more like maternal elements of Ripley's character that she really starts being fleshed out as a woman, I think. But it doesn't matter to me that, she's maybe she's not the most feminine of women. To me, Ellen Ripley is just a badass character.
Yeah.
Who, the way her character is built throughout this movie is so genius. She starts off as a kind of supporting character that a lot of people wouldn't really expect to be the quote unquote final girl in horror terms, and then by the end of it, the way she's like sweat covered running through the innards of the Nostromo with like these yellow lights flashing behind her, the close-ups on her eyes as she's like kind of climbing over bulkheads. It's just the movie brings you into her story in such a compelling way, and I love it so much.
Yeah, it's just it's unbelievable. I really like it. So you prefer the Ridley Scott horror Alien to the James Cameron action adventure Alien 2?
I think Aliens, yeah. No, I've gone back and forth on it. I think Aliens is a more fun movie. If I was just wanting to chuck something on with friends to have a really good time, I might put Aliens on, because I think Alien is a kind of movie that rewards you really paying attention to it and like sort of soaking in the beauty of the photography and the score. But I think Alien is a better movie. It's similar to what we were saying, earlier about like kind of Happy Gilmore and that kind of stuff. Aliens is something I've probably watched more. But if someone asked me to kind of pin down which one is the better movie, I'd say Alien.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, we're on to mine now. I will just say, ever since I saw this film back in 2011, 2012, that was, I think Konrad and I met each other in 2013.
Yeah,
and
that sounds right.
Very soon after I showed him this film. And, he said it was the best film he's ever seen.
Yeah, just a blockbuster.
Yeah. This film speaks to me at a visceral level. And I'll unpack that a bit in a minute. But ever since I've seen this film, every film I watch, I compare to this. And that film is, of course, We Bought a Zoo. It had to be. We Bought a Zoo, in my opinion, is the perfect film for all genres, there's a bit of
all ages,
a bit of horror in there, the animal, like the lion, that is very tension filled, But no, We Bought a Zoo for me is just the perfect family film. It has a real great emotional warmth to it.
Yeah, it's got some heart.
It's full of heart. The child actors that they have are really good. The little girl is cute as hell. Scarlett Johansson gives a good performance. Matt Damon does. And this is one thing. If I'm going to sit down and watch a film, just at any point want to watch a film, one thing that I sort of need to have in a film that I don't have to be in a mood for, it needs to have what I call the We Bought a Zoo factor, right? Because what I mean is it's the emotional heart of the film, but I also mean literally just like the cinematography and the setting is really bright and vibrant, and it's like escapism to me. It's like, how you watch people just build a house from scratch on YouTube just for fun, right? I do anyway. So
I've never done that, but okay.
Well, do it, because it's really good. Like just watching people living.
Maybe that's what I've been missing.
Yeah, like people who just make a whole channel about their life in the mountains of Montana or whatever. I just watch stuff like that, right? Because to me, this We Bought a Zoo is like escapism. Like if I won the lottery, 100%. I would go out and just move and have a huge bit of land in the countryside with a big house. And it's just so good. As well as that, like the storyline of like the mother passing away, like, my father passed away in 2009, and I'm not going to be, this is a bit of a meme, but at the same time, the film does speak to me in a huge way for that reason. I think they handle a passing parent and passing spouse with real care and fragility, and it to the point where one of the main storylines of the film is about coming to terms with the death of Matt Damon's wife and the children's mother. For all the characters. And by the end of the film, whenever there's a spark of a romance between him and Scarlett Johansson's character, it's completely believable. Like, it'd be very easy at the end of the film for you just to be like, well, we're just moving on to her now. But it's not that at all. It doesn't feel like that at all. And I'm I just absolutely love this film. I just will say, before we sort of chat a little bit, chat about it, I just wanted to mention it's also got great comedic moments, because Thomas Hayden Church plays the brother of Matt Damon's character. Benjamin Mee is Matt Damon. Duncan Mee is the brother, and he is absolutely hilarious in this film.
Yeah, Thomas Hayden Church is always money.
Yeah, there's one moment in particular which is just I wanted to mention here. So Thomas Hayden Church was not behind the idea of buying this zoo. He thinks he's wasting his money.
Not at all. Not at all.
And he goes to him. You got to get rid of this zoo, right? And then Kelly walks by, who is Scarlett Johansson's character, and then he's like, "Who's that?" He's like, "That's Kelly." He goes, "All right, new plan. Get rid of the zoo, keep Kelly. That's true joy."
Thomas Hayden Church, and the supporting cast in this movie is amazing, but Thomas Hayden Church is always really funny in everything I've ever seen him in.
He's a good fellow. So there you go. There's mine. We're gonna flip a coin to see who goes number one.
Yeah. Well, I will say as well, just before we do that, I think there is definitely value to the effect something has on you in the context that you watch it. I think that's valid. That's valid criticism of it, to be like, well, this is, this meant a lot to me at this time. It's the reason why I, even though maybe I don't like the newer Star Wars movies as much, I still love Star Wars and Indiana Jones, because although they're all great movies, but because I watched them when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, this also I didn't realize about this movie. It's a Cameron Crowe film.
Yeah.
I didn't look this up until like the other day when I was writing the sort of structure for this episode. But he did like Jerry Maguire and Almost Famous and Vanilla Sky. Like he's got some chops. So it's not
this
that
film has chops in general. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I mean, we do meme about it, but it is also genuinely a really good movie. Like it's got a lot of heart. It's very touching. It's got great performances in it. It has a famous bear in the cast, which like Bart the Bear the Second. Apparently, I've never heard of that, but
yeah. Well, that's a great moment as well with the bear. Jeez, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. Horror elements, as I said.
Okay, but so here it comes. The moment we've all been waiting for. We're going to decide the best movie of all time.
Now, Konrad is flipping a coin virtually. So if it does come out that he wins, guys, it's not fixed. I'm going to trust Konrad here, okay?
Yeah. So I'm going to say heads for Aliens, tails for We Bought a Zoo.
Okay.
For the best movie of all time.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go. Oh, it's taking a while. It's heads.
Oh,
it's heads. I'm sorry.
That's the way it goes. That's objectively now the best film of all time.
Lady Fate has smiled upon Ridley Scott this day,
and maybe we'll get one or two less dislikes now.
So my hope for this is that random people stumble upon this podcast in the year's time when we've withered and turned to dust, and they're like, "Oh, cool! Finally, someone has ranked the top 10 films ever." But no one's done that before, and then they'll see like Alien on top as it should be, but maybe they'll go and watch We Bought a Zoo, seeing it in that second spot.
Yeah, and
nestled in that second
they'll
spot.
think that should have been number one.
Yeah. Actually, I forgot to do something here. This is like remiss of me in my podcasting duties, but we were going to go through some honourable mentions, so let's do that very quickly.
Yes, okay.
I was going to do it before the number one slot.
But anyway, honourable mentions. So we'll go maybe what 3 honourable mentions each.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So what do you go through your honourable mentions first?
So my first honourable mention is Toy Story. Great first ever computer animated film. I needed to include something from my childhood / something from the animated world. You had an animated one in there, but I wanted something. I thought Long and Hard. And to be honest with you, I could have chosen a Disney musical, but at the same time, like they are what they are. They all are what they are. I chose Toy Story because of the sort of the landmark it made in cinema history. Yeah. Which is just a great buddy film.
It is.
Yeah,
it makes me cry.
That's my first honourable mention. Second honourable mention would be Interstellar.
Okay.
Which see the score of that film, right? The organ, like they play the organ in a church, right? It's just, oh my god, that film just makes me feel things. Honestly, like
it's Hans Zimmer, right? The score.
It's Hans Zimmer, yeah. Hans Zimmer, and they played a church organ, and it's just amazing. I just love that film. I love when Christopher Nolan plays with time and the idea of the gravity and the time. I just love that. I love that Christopher Nolan. Like, again, Christopher Nolan is someone that's memed a lot, but I don't meme on things unless I truly like them, really.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan, to me, he's not made a film that I don't like. I've even watched Following, so I've seen them all.
I've never seen that, actually.
It's a black and white. It's great. It's his first film, but he's a really interesting director to me. And I watched a film of his last night, which we'll mention later on. But I watched it. I finished watching it at 1:30 in the morning. And then I watched an hour and a half of special features straight after. I swear, because even just his process, like a lot of the time you would think of like metteur en scène, like you think of like these auteurs who like take control of every single bit, and like Chris Nolan is that, but at the same time he has real faith in the creative people that he puts around him, and he brings like the person we were talking earlier about the score. Of Punch Drunk Love. It's the same thing with Chris Nolan films. Chris Nolan actually has the same composer as The Mandalorian, by the way.
Okay, that's interesting.
For Tenet, anyway. For Tenet.
I didn't know
Interstellar was Hans Zimmer. Tenet is he's moved on because Hans Zimmer was busy. But he brings them in and has them the whole way through the process. They come to the set, they write music before things have been shot, and then he's able to shoot the stuff to shoot the scenes based on what the music is.
Yeah.
And it really gives it, and it's the same with the editor. The editor comes to the set the whole time. So anyway, Chris Nolan, I think, and I'm just going to mention straight away, my other honorable mention, to be honest with you, would have been Inception too. Now, there's 100 million, like, I could go on forever. I could go 12 Years a Slave. Blah blah blah. I could go so many amazing films that I could list, but I'm going to choose those three because okay. What about you?
No, I mean they're good movies, and as you say, we joke about Christopher Nolan because he kind of became the like film bro filmmaker de jour. But honestly, like I like a lot of his movies. I don't like Interstellar as much as you do, but I think sound design and score are always reliable in his movies. Like his sound design and score is always great. And to say, Interstellar, I don't dislike Interstellar. I think it's a good movie.
It all comes down to how the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, like the ending really didn't land with me at all.
It landed with me.
But he makes great movies. Prestige as well. I love Prestige. I think that's a fantastic movie. So my honourable mentions then are number one is I say number one. These aren't numbered. Is Singing in the Rain. I do like a musical, and Singing in the Rain is one of the best musicals ever made. It's just joyous from start to finish. It's only like 90 minutes long, so it moves at a hell of a clip. Dancing is amazing, song is amazing, story's fun, and it's always great when Hollywood gets to write a movie about itself because they know what they're doing. The other one is this is going to make me sound really like maybe these last two are going to make me sound pretentious. I don't intend it to be if that comes across that way. One of them is Casablanca, which is Michael Curtiz's film. It's just amazing. It's a love story for the ages. It's still quoted and referenced in plenty of things today, which shows how influential it is. I don't think it's aged at all. Humphrey Bogart's performance is fantastic. He's really funny in it. Well worth checking out if you want to watch like a classical romance. And my last one is Run, which is an Akira Kurosawa movie. It's like an adaptation of King Lear. It's very long. I warn you ahead of time if anyone's going to go and watch that. But it is one of the most beautiful movies to look at I've ever seen. And if you like King Lear, Shakespeare's pretty good. So like in general. So Run is a great movie to check out. Awesome. So I'm just going to quickly go through our top 10 again, and then we will move on to wrapping things up for the week. So we've got, in the number 10 slot, we've got Happy Gilmore. In the number 9 slot, we've got Punch Drunk Love. In the number 8 slot, we have Perfect Blue. In the number 7 slot, we have, hold on now, There Will Be Blood. Yeah. In the number 6 slot, we have, I can't remember what we agreed on with this. Was it number 6 slot, we have The Last Black Man in San Francisco?
Yeah.
Number 5 slot, we have Blade Runner.
Yep.
Number 4 slot, we have The Thing. Number 3 slot, we have the Back to the Future trilogy. Number 2 is We Bought a Zoo.
Hey, that rhymes. I'm happy with that.
Yep. And number 1 is Alien. So there you go. The objective top 10 best movies ever made. We can finally stop having that conversation now.
Yeah, and that is the top. No matter how long this podcast goes on for, that is our top 10.
It'll never be revised, never be addressed.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, right. There's only really one thing left for us to establish at the end of this podcast, and really, it just boils down to this, Anthony, and that is, what is your favourite movie?
My favourite movie is Tenet.
Great.
Yeah, I'm currently in the buzz of like, when you see a really good film and like you're in the buzz of like for the next few days you're like, I think that might be the best movie ever made. you know like I always like when you walk it out the cinema you're like, geez, that was just, I think I've just had the best experience of my life. So when Inception came out, my wife and I went to see it in the cinema 4 times. I think whenever, and I hold up earlier, but there's the case. I think if Tenet was in the cinema for me, because I didn't go because of coronavirus, I would have went to see it multiple times, if I'm honest with you. Yeah. I'm going to watch it multiple times. I am going to be doing a video essay on it. It is what they've tried to do in this film, and I will say tried because I haven't made a decision on whether they've been successful yet. But what they've tried to do with the concept of time in this is absolutely mind-blowing. Like, okay, all right, that's all I'll say. Like, it's just
all right.
It's good. John David Washington as well is just amazing in it. I'm really I loved him in Black Klansman, and I think he's got a great future ahead of him. Kenneth Branagh plays a
always
really
good.
Kenneth Branagh plays a real hammy Russian bad guy. Basically, what Tenet is like, it's a James Bond film but they are putting it on crack and introducing time travel into it. That's what it is.
That sounds right.
It's literally, there was rumors for years that Christopher Nolan would do a Bond film. Maybe he still will, but I kind of view this as his Bond film. You know, it's so good. You should check it out.
Yep, I will do. And my favourite movie is Claire Duvall's Happiest Season. It's a Christmas movie. It's about a girl who is not out to her parents and brings her girlfriend home, and she has to pretend to be her roommate.
I've heard about this, actually.
It's very funny, and it's very touching as well. It's got Mackenzie Davis, Kristen Stewart.
That's right.
Yeah, Kristen Stewart plays the girlfriend. Mackenzie Davis is the sort of the one who has a politician for a father, so she has like a lot of pressure on her to live according to his norms. It's got Alison Brie and Aubrey Plaza as supporting characters. It's really good. If you're in the mood for a Christmas movie with a lot of heart, it's quite touching. Made me cry a couple of times. Happiest Season is the movie to go for.
Where can we catch that? Because I think I will watch that.
It's on. Where did I watch it? I think I watched it on Sky. It's on that.
Yeah,
it's probably on other streaming services.
TV then. Now TV.
Yeah, it'll probably be on Now TV.
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
Hopefully it's on some other streaming services internationally as well. But yeah, well worth checking out. Really good Christmas movie. But yeah, so
will do.
I think that basically does us for this week, folks.
Thanks very much for listening.
Yeah, we've done it. You've made it to the end.
If anyone's still listening now, we thank you so much. We really honestly do, from the bottom of our heart, because like sort of stepping away from the TV show Dark has been a little bit we've been thinking of doing for a while. And if you've come with us on this journey, we are forever grateful to you, honestly.
Yeah. I think I can't say thank you enough to the people who have supported us through this and who are listening to us. Also want to say thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. Check out their other stuff from the link in the description. And yeah, thank you to you all for listening. We hope you stay safe and happy in this holiday season. I've been Konrad. He has been Anthony James.
That's me.
There he is. And we will catch you all next week. Same pod time, same pod place.
And bye.